All right, well, everybody, welcome to the second episode of the Fireside, our Entrepreneurship Club podcast. I'm joined by Brittany, our newsletter editor, uh, Tyler, who you guys will see as John, but he prefers Tyler, our student advisor, and a member of the Entrepreneurship Club, Chris. Now, we wanted to talk about today an event that just happened, Wright Venture, which is a student organization, kind of a Shark Tank-esque pitch competition, and Brittany and Tyler had just participated in it. Could you guys share us, what your product was and how it went?
Yeah, absolutely. Would you like to start off, Brittany, or would you like me to?
Sure.
Like,
Huh?
I can go over the product if you'd like.
Well, I mean, that was my slide, so I'll take it from here. Thank you. Um,
Fair enough.
so we are developing an app called Seer that uses natural language processing and predictive modeling in order to cater to each individual consumer's experience. Now I'm just like verbatim. But the more you use the app, the better it gets to know you, and it'll help you better prioritize your task list. So it'll be able to predict how long it takes you to do something, or maybe getting X done is more important than getting Y done. So it'll just help you better organize that and make your day more productive.
I think it's a perfect way to explain it.
Now, Tyler, I knew you were into a lot of the kind of AI and coding aspects of it, and as I saw in the pitch, do you think you could speak to some of that?
Sure. Is there anything in specific, or do you want me to just kind of go over it as a whole?
What's it gonna do that's gonna be different than some existing, AI and uh, personal organizer products that are out
Yeah.
there?
So AI is an interesting thing because it's a very broad technology that can be applied to a litany of things in a litany of ways. In this case, right now we have in mind two different ways we'll use it, but as we as we design the app, we may or may not increase that, or we'll see what the design turns out to be. But right now, what we're planning is to use something called natural language processing. Would you like me to explain what that is, or are you familiar with it?
No, you go ahead.
So natural language processing is essentially how computers understand language. So take the English language, for example. When you're typing out a paragraph or any sort of text, it's all very context dependent.
Mhm.
One word can have a whole litany of meanings just depending
It's
on,
not something
again, the
like
context.
HTML or JavaScript or Python where you have to have it in this phrase exactly.
Right.
Everybody's got a different way of saying stuff.
Exactly, exactly. And, traditionally computers are very logical to a fault that it gets really annoying, let me tell you. And so you can have one thing or another that you mean for it to do, but you might have told it something else. And if you ever just look at your writing with a critical eye and imagine somebody's entirely naive to implications or assumptions, and you'll start to realize how quickly that breaks down when you're working with computers. Natural language processing is a way to use machine learning to allow the computer or artificial intelligence. So really quick, machine learning and artificial intelligence are essentially interchangeable in this context. Um, so natural language processing is a way to use machine learning so that a computer can understand human written text. And so for us in our application, when you type out a task, we can use natural language processing to understand what you actually meant by that. Um, for example, if your task says email report, you're likely trying to remind yourself that you need to send a report to somebody, not build a report on emails.
Right.
That might not be the case, right? But that's likely the case. A computer's not going to know that off the bat. We'd either have to program that in, and we could do it for that specific case, no problem. But to do that for a broad array of things, it'd be better to use something more high powered like AI or machine learning. So we're going to use that to collect data. So that way what you write in as a task actually means something to the computer, where otherwise it would be very difficult for the reasons I just explained. And then we'll use something called predictive modeling, which is a very general term. It sounds fancy. It means almost the same thing as artificial intelligence yet again. And all that means is we're going to try to predict something. In this case, we're going to take in the task that you've written in, and we're going to try to predict how long it's going to take you to do it. So it's a very data intensive thing. You know, the way this looks on the back end is going to be millions of data points in a database that gets run through essentially a program that's really good at guessing, and hopefully it'll continue to be really good at guessing when you use it.
And so it takes exhibitions of like what you do. Like if I, as a student, if I put, oh, I got to put my rough draft of my research paper together, and I've also got to do a quiz on finance. It'll say, well, the last time you did a research paper, it took 6 hours, and the last time you did a quiz, it took 15 minutes. So here's your suggested list of tasks.
Yeah, and we're actually going to take it a step further. So we're going to say on average, when everybody writes a paper, it takes this
Okay.
long. However, you tend to be faster at writing than the average person, so we're going to shorten it by X%, or vice versa. You tend to take longer for writing than the average person, so we're going to lengthen it by this percent. Over time, it's going to get much more accurate for you specifically as we start categorizing those tasks as writing or programming or woodworking. I don't know.
All right. Well, I don't mean to bring up a sore subject, but you guys didn't get either first or second. Do you think you can speak to some of the strengths of what you had done versus what the Wolves, our judges in the Wright Venture contest, deemed to be appropriate for a winner?
Absolutely. Um, I think in this case, so congratulations to Leos and Ubot for taking first and second respectively. You both earned it, absolutely. Leos, for example, was ready to launch now. They're ready to sell product. So when they get that five right, sounds like it's $6,000 this year, which is incredible. They're ready to put that right into their company and start with marketing and fulfillment in the sales. Ubot has a very robust design technically. So their product, it looks like, is just about ready to go. For us, we came up with this idea for this event. We feel very confident in the opportunity that's here, but we're going about a very long planning process. So we're following something called the Kaufman Fast Track methodology through a program called Early Risers Academy here in Dayton. Now, just for quick definitions, Early Risers Academy is a 10-week rigorous program that's built to take a company from idea all the way ready to launch, to be ready to execute on that plan. The Kaufman methodology is the Kaufman Fast Track methodology is what they use for that class. And that methodology is focused on market-driven design. Typically, you may have seen businesses started where a product comes to mind and then the business this came to mind, so there's probably a need, so let's figure out where that need is and let's figure out who has that need. The market-driven development's a little bit different. You start by looking at kind of what your capabilities are or what area you want to be in. For us, we're looking at task management and artificial intelligence, and we have a rough idea of who we want our target market to be, or the customers that we want to serve. And that's going to be people who are just very busy and have what we've been calling complex and busy schedules. Not only is it a lot of things, but it's a lot of things for different projects or different types of things. So for us, what that entails is we need to look for these individuals. We need to take a step back. We need to figure out what our value proposition is. So what is it we can really offer the market that we're looking to go after? And then we need to refine that market very narrowly. There's a lot of time spent on value proposition, market research, and then you go into the design of what the product is and the rest of the business. So we're just very early on in that stage. And so while I believe, and we at Seer believe that the opportunity is overwhelmingly present, kind of on all fronts: the team, the timing, the market potential. Just very quickly, there's it's actually could be justified to be much larger than this, but there's at least $100 billion market potential or potential market for this product.
And that's not even to include the fact that it's in the realm of what a lot of big tech companies are doing, but it's not a recognized asset. And so that's something that we addressed last week. Chris, you weren't with us, but last week we were talking about finding vacuums in markets and what we could do to fill those. I want to turn to Brittany just for a second, and I wanted to know how you got on board with this, or what, because I imagine you guys dreamt this up together. What kind of roles did you play in the development of this?
Okay, so it was actually kind of ironic. I was on the phone with my mom and I was talking to her. I said, I have always wanted to start my own business in some way, shape, or form. I just didn't have an idea. Um, but being an entrepreneur was always kind of a dream of mine for many years. And my mom just said, well, you know, sit tight, focus on school. If it comes to you, it comes to you. If not, just stay on the path that you're on. And it was not even a few hours later that Tyler put on a Snap story. He's like, so who wants to start a business for real? I was like, yeah, I do. So I messaged him. He told me he had this idea. Um, I expanded upon it a little bit. We both agreed, and it just kind of grew from there. And the role that I'm currently playing is not exactly defined at the moment.
But you had talked a lot
We're
about,
all doing everything, huh?
yeah. You also had talked about because Tyler's obviously got a lot of experience with some of the more technical
Yes.
things you were talking about during the pitch competition. I heard you say the human resources, the marketing, the face-to-face stuff, everything that you need to turn an idea into, a business.
Right.
'Cause that's something that that's really crucial and is often missing from a lot of businesses because you have people that are super charismatic. You have your Steve Jobs and
Hmm.
he's a little dorky, but Elon Musk and those people that we talked about last week, Charles Kettering, the people that people really like. And somebody that's got the most brilliant mind in the world at 30 in their parents' basement because they never learned how to talk to anyone, they could be the most intelligent
Yeah.
person ever, and they're
Yeah.
just not accessing or realizing that.
Yeah. Honestly, though, taking a look at our team, me, Tyler, and Kim Yost, I feel like we're all pretty charismatic, and we can each click with different uh, groups, and I'm just excited. I think we have a very broad range of skills that we each bring to the table, and I think this product can go really far. I really do.
Agree, and I want to jump in really quick. Brittany tends to be a bit humble with this, with the development of the product and actually how it came to happen. So this very briefly, this idea started when we were asked to participate in Wright Venture. Um, this might be a part you might want to cut out. I already started saying it. So we were asked to participate in Wright Venture because they were struggling to get some contestants, especially with the quarantine and all that happening. Um, they wanted to build it out, and they know that I have a passion for this and experience doing so. So that's where the post came from. Brittany joined the team. I was thrilled when she reached out. And as we were talking about this idea, I was actually looking for a to-do list app at the time. I couldn't find anything I really liked. And I was looking at something with a UI that kind of stands out. And as I was describing it to Brittany, she just jumped in. She's like, oh, and you could predict how long it would take him to complete something, which has now become almost the core functionality of the app. Was exactly what you said there, Brittany, which oddly enough, talking about timing, that technology's I met with one of the leading researchers in AI at Wright State. The technology to actually do that's just on the cusp of coming out. It actually doesn't exist yet. We'll be either adopting a brand new technology or building it ourselves for this application.
Yeah, and I don't think
Got
there's
this.
I don't think there's really anything um to cut out there because it's no secret that a lot of the things in the world are being impacted by the coronavirus epidemic right now, and
Mhm.
it's affecting as much as anything else, more than anything else, honestly, small business and startups. And so
Right.
I don't, I'd say it's even more relevant to say so. Chris, I wanted to jump over to you because I haven't heard from you much. What did you ever consider participating in Wright Venture? And if not, do you think you're going to next year?
Yeah. So originally, I was going to work with a student at Wright State who's, he's taking a semester off right now. I was going to work with him, and we were going to present an idea, but I had issues on my end as far as timing and scheduling, and I wasn't able to present today. And because of me not being able to present, he couldn't present because he's taking a semester off, and you have to, at least work with an enrolled student.
Enrolled, yeah.
Right. So that was this year. As far as next year, I definitely have plans of either presenting something myself or taking a strong role on somebody else's team to try to take first place for sure.
So what are the kind of things that excite you? What gets you going? Because
Definitely things that are very innovative. Right now, just hearing about Tyler's product, Tyler and Brittany's product, it's exciting. It's really exciting to hear about, the uncharted territory that you guys are dwelling into. Another thing that really gets me going is like recycling. There's a lot of different materials that are constantly being thrown away that I think with the right approach from the right people could be turned into products that are very profitable that also give back. So
so that's something else that we were addressing a lot in the last episode was the difference between a big pair being like Tesla and Edison. You know, they well, Edison mostly ripped off all of Tesla's stuff, but he was the charismatic one. He was the salesman. Edison was the face of all of the products, and Tesla just wanted to do good and to kind of just put out products for the good of human nature. And it wasn't that entrepreneurship, it wasn't as much drive or salesmanship. And you got to have a balance of the two, but it's really evident which one gets a company or a product going quicker. And so, it's great to have not only something that is good for the world, but also have that drive from yourself where you're out there and you're pushing it real.
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, motivation behind any task will kind of determine what the outcome is.
Yeah, and we were talking about things that whatever excites you. You don't want to limit your scope, and especially right now, just staying motivated is the most, really kind of the most difficult and most important thing.
Yeah, it's very challenging. I mean, ever since everything got shut down, I feel like a lot of people have just checked out, including myself. Like it's been rough.
Okay, though, we're pass fail.
Yeah, Wright State is pass
Yeah.
fail. What's elective pass fail, right? So we can keep our grades if we want.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So we get to keep all the A's and turn the rest to passes.
Absolutely.
I'm getting all passes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. So I wanted to
Talk
jump
about my grades.
to well, you're all right. That's why it's an entrepreneurship podcast and not an academic podcast. What are some of the things that you're going to have to do to turn this idea and developing product into a consumable in the marketplace, tangible thing?
Yeah, this is for Seer.
Yeah, Seer, and you're calling it Seer?
Yeah. So the application is Seer, SEER. We
Oh, as
pulled
someone
in
who's
portions of-
like a seat, like of sight. Okay.
Yeah, and God, I need to have this one down. Give me 2 seconds while I talk.
All right.
A seer is a person who is supposed to be able, through supernatural insight, to see what the future holds. That's what we're going to do for you. And that's the app. More specifically, that's what the application is going to do for you. As a concept, we can launch into so many other areas with Seer, such as the app we called Seer Intuition on Wright Venture's that pitch competition. Sorry about that. And so we're coming up with a different name for the company as a whole. We're thinking clairvoyance or something along those lines, but that might be copyrighted. We just haven't put much time or thought into that. We're focusing most of our energy, like I said, right now on figuring out our value proposition and our target market, and then kind of coming up with a go-to-market strategy from there. Depending on who we're targeting up front, that's going to impact the features that we want to include in the app. So the AI ML part's a cool part, but the user interface is just as important, because it doesn't really matter if we can tell them all kinds of cool stuff, or if we have a lot of good information for them, if we can't give it to them clearly. And there's a lot of information to communicate. So to answer your question about getting to market and building an app, or building something, we need to start by figuring out who our target market is, getting some interviews done, so we can build a prototype, getting those prototypes in the hands of testers and getting feedback early on to build and build the product from there. We're starting without the AI machine learning aspect, to cut down on development time and costs and get into the market as soon as possible.
So what's the legal operation? What is it that you have to do? I mean, would you have to start a corporation, an LLC, or
I'm not clear exactly on what. Yeah, so we're going to start something. We're going to register this company in some way. I'm not clear exactly what it's going to be. Brittany, do you have thoughts on that? Lost you.
Brittany, I can't hear you. Let's see.
What's the chance it came unplugged?
How about now?
All right, yeah.
Weird. Okay. I would say the first step for getting this app to market is definitely a patent search. Number one priority. But then after that, we really need to focus on our target market, which we have a pretty good idea, but that's going to come with some focus groups and surveys and figuring out their needs, because we can put something out there, but if we do it in the wrong way, we don't take those right steps, nobody's going to on it. No one's going to know it's there. So you need to focus. You have to realize that it's about your consumers.
Mhm.
So I think that's
It's all about the
focus
consumer.
is going to be. Yes.
Because it is also, I mean, you have to have some legal entity, a corporation or something established in order to get something from a producer to a consumer. So that's a lot of the hang up, I imagine, especially um, right now. Do you guys have any adaptive measures that you're taking to make this more possible in the midst of an international lockdown?
I don't know the actual process for registering it just yet. Early on in my coursework, I went through a pretty extensive analysis between them, and honestly, it all went out the other year after the exam, because I knew I could look it up, and I had a rough idea of kind of where it
Yeah.
and so I didn't need to remember it. Where we're at right now is we could take the time to do that, to dig into what organization will, or how we'll need to, classify the business when we register it. But we'll be doing that as part of the Early Risers Academy curriculum. And so we've decided that if we're going to have to do that anyway for that program, we're going to focus our time right now elsewhere, because we know we're coming up on that in the next month or so.
And we had talked to a representative on a meeting, Damien, who couldn't join us, but was in the podcast last week. And I talked with a rep from the Early Learners Academy, starting to
Is that
discuss what some of their
was that Kiana or Audrey?
Audrey is Audrey.
Yeah. Okay, I was on that call, but
Oh, no, I wasn't. No, you don't count.
that's fair.
I should get you a hard time. But it's exciting. That's definitely something that's really interesting. What is the organization that does that boot camp?
It's hosted through an organization called Dayton Tech Guide, or Launch Dayton. They're right in the middle of a rebranding right now.
Mhm.
It's funded
So
through a government program.
They're going to be called Launch Dayton when they start up, and they're also going to have, in the next, what they said, year or so, a physical structure in the arcade, with the rebirth of the arcade in downtown Dayton. So
Yeah, that sounded really cool.
yeah, and anybody, actually, B, you were on that call, weren't you?
I was, but that's okay. I
Oh
don't
boy,
matter.
man. Everybody but Chris, everybody
I don't
but Chris
count.
is on
A
that call.
recap.
No. Um, I can barely keep track of myself. I barely knew if I was
Good.
on the call.
Good.
But it's, for anybody listening entrepreneurially, starting a business, most people have a great idea. Not everybody has the communication skills or all of their bases covered.
Right.
So that's something that's absolutely critical. And
Do your research for sure.
all right, well, do you guys have any more thoughts?
Yes,
Oh
actually,
yeah.
on that note, I believe it was the newsletter last week that I wrote. I put a link to an article that will tell you the steps that you need to do your startup. So if you have good ideas, subscribe to the article and you can check that out. But
That's really good stuff.
I did write about it last week.
Well, yeah, I knew that. I was making a segue. I was making sure everybody knew about it.
Call out here.
Um,
Read the article that I made.
I wrote I read all about Wright Venture. I went and watched Wright Venture. So, for everybody that didn't catch Wright Venture, I believe that it's going to be posted somewhere on Rochester College Business website or something to the effect. And everybody take a look. If you're all Wright State students, take a look at subscribing to the Entrepreneurship Club's newsletter, because it is open enrollment from all students, and the club itself is open enrollment for any student of Wright State. So starting back up in the fall, we look forward to hearing a lot more from a lot more people and kind of growing the footprint of the club. So anything else from you guys?
I was looking to see if the Wright Venture was posted already, but I'd imagine
It takes WebEx is going to take a couple hours to render all of the data. That's the same thing that happens with the podcast. So you guys are hearing this sometime around Friday afternoon, everybody listening, and I was actually recorded Thursday right after Wright Venture. So if you haven't watched that, hop on over there right after this. Well, it was great seeing all you guys, talking to all of you. Stay safe, wash your hands.
Yep.
All right, and bye everybody.